There is something unusual about the message you are about to hear. Not because it is dramatic. Not because it is designed to scare you. But because it speaks about a connection that you may not even realize exists. Somewhere, at this very moment, a person is carrying a story about you. A story they have never fully told. A story that has been sitting in their heart for a long time. And the shocking part is this. They believe their life was saved because of something you did. Not because you performed a miracle. Not because you possessed special powers. But because one decision, one action, one conversation, one moment of kindness changed the direction of their life forever. And now, the truth is getting ready to come out. Before we continue, pay close attention. Because this message is not about luck. It is about impact. The kind of impact people rarely see while they are creating it. Many people spend their lives believing they have done nothing extraordinary. They wake up. They work. They struggle. They carry burdens nobody knows about. And they assume their existence has not changed anything important. But what if that assumption is completely wrong? What if there are people whose lives look different today because you crossed their path? What if a single sentence you spoke years ago prevented someone from giving up? What if a small act of kindness became the reason someone found hope? What if the encouragement you barely remember became the turning point they never forgot? Think about that. Because there is a reason this message found you. There is a reason these words are reaching your ears right now. Someone has been carrying gratitude for you. And they are getting closer to revealing it. The strange thing about life is that we often remember our failures more than our victories. We remember the opportunities we missed. The mistakes we made. The people we disappointed. The goals we haven't reached. But we rarely see the invisible good we leave behind. A smile. A conversation. A helping hand. A moment of patience. A word of encouragement. These things seem small. Yet sometimes they become the difference between darkness and light in another person's life. And there is someone connected to you who knows this better than anyone. Because they lived it. Years ago, they were facing a situation that felt impossible. Fear surrounded them. Confusion clouded their judgment. The future looked uncertain. And while everyone else was focused on their own lives, you showed up. Maybe you knew it. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you remember the moment. Maybe you have completely forgotten it. But they haven't. Not for a single day. Because in their eyes, that moment became a lifeline. And ever since then, they have carried a silent debt of gratitude. A debt they never knew how to repay. But something is changing. The silence is ending. The hidden truth is beginning to rise to the surface. And what they reveal may surprise you more than anyone. Because you never expected your influence to reach that far. You never expected your words to matter that much. You never imagined that a simple action could echo through another person's future. Yet that is exactly what happened. There is a lesson hidden here. Many people believe their value comes from recognition. From applause. From attention. From being seen. But some of the greatest impacts happen where nobody is watching. A seed is planted underground long before anyone sees the tree. And in the same way, the good you do often grows in places you cannot see. The person connected to this message understands that. They understand that your presence arrived during one of the darkest chapters of their life. And because of that, they have spent a long time wondering if they should tell you. Should they reach out? Should they share the truth? Should they explain how much your actions meant? For a long time, fear stopped them. Fear of sounding emotional. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of reopening old memories. But the weight of silence has become heavier than the fear. And now the truth wants to be spoken. Imagine receiving a message one day. A message from someone you haven't thought about in years. A message that begins with words you never expected. I don't know if you remember me. And then they tell you something that leaves you speechless. They tell you that when they were ready to quit, you gave them a reason to keep going. When they felt invisible, you made them feel seen. When they felt abandoned, you reminded them they mattered. And suddenly you realize that what felt ordinary to you felt extraordinary to them. That realization changes people. Because it forces us to see ourselves differently. It reminds us that our lives touch other lives in ways we cannot measure. The person connected to this message is carrying exactly that realization. And they are moving closer to sharing it. But there is another layer to this story. Because the revelation is not only about the past. It is also about the future. The same connection that once helped them survive is preparing to create something new. A reunion. A conversation. An opportunity. A blessing. Something unfinished is preparing to complete itself. The circle is closing. What was once hidden is becoming visible. What was once silent is finding a voice. And what was once separated is moving toward connection. This is why you must not underestimate your role in the lives of others. You may not know who is watching. You may not know who is learning from your example. You may not know who is finding strength because of your courage. But influence does not require permission. It happens naturally. Every day. With every choice. With every interaction. And somewhere, someone has been affected by yours. As this story continues to unfold, pay attention to unexpected signs. Unexpected conversations. Unexpected messages. Unexpected encounters. Because life has a strange way of bringing hidden truths into the light when the timing is right. And timing matters. There are revelations that arrive too early. There are revelations that arrive too late. But then there are revelations that arrive exactly when they are needed. This feels like one of those moments. A moment when someone is finally ready to tell the truth. A moment when gratitude becomes stronger than hesitation. A moment when a story that has remained hidden finally gets told. You may think this sounds impossible. But consider this. How many people have changed your life without realizing it? How many faces do you remember because they appeared at the perfect time? How many conversations still live in your memory years later? If that can happen to you, why couldn't it happen because of you? The answer is simple. It can. And it does. More often than you realize. The person connected to this message has reached a point where keeping the truth inside no longer feels right. They want you to know. They want you to understand. They want you to see yourself through their eyes. And when that moment comes, you may finally understand something that has been hidden from you all along. You are more important than you think. You have influenced more lives than you know. You have created more good than you remember. And your story has reached places you have never seen. That is the revelation. Not that you became famous. Not that you became powerful. Not that you became perfect. But that your existence mattered. Deeply. Powerfully. Unexpectedly. To someone who needed it most. And now, the truth is getting closer. The silence is breaking. The hidden gratitude is rising. The hidden gratitude is rising. The story is preparing to be told. And when it is finally revealed, you may discover that one of the greatest things you ever did was something you almost forgot. Because while you moved on with your life, someone else never forgot the day you helped save theirs. And yet, the story does not end there. Because what makes this revelation so powerful is not only what happened in the past. It is what has been happening ever since. You see, after that moment when your words, your actions, or simply your presence changed the direction of their life, they carried something with them every single day. A question. A question they never fully answered. Do they know what they did for me? At first, they assumed they would tell you soon. A few days passed. Then a few weeks. Then months. Then years. Life became busy. Responsibilities grew. Circumstances changed. People moved. Paths separated. But the question never disappeared. In fact, it became stronger. Because every time something good happened in their life, they traced the chain of events backward. And somehow, the path always led back to that moment involving you. The promotion they received. The relationship they found. The dream they finally achieved. The confidence they eventually developed. The peace they discovered. They could connect all of it to a turning point. And that turning point was connected to you. The shocking part is that you probably never knew. You never stood there expecting recognition. You never demanded credit. You never asked for praise. You simply did what felt right in that moment. And then you continued living your life. But while you moved forward, they never stopped remembering. Every year, the memory became clearer. Every challenge reminded them of how far they had come. And every success reminded them of the person who helped them survive one of the hardest chapters of their journey. That person was you. Now pay attention. Because there is something else happening beneath the surface. The universe has a way of bringing unfinished stories back together. Not every connection lasts forever. Not every relationship returns. But some stories are too important to remain unfinished. Some truths demand to be spoken. Some gratitude demands to be expressed. And right now, invisible pieces are moving into place. The timing is becoming impossible to ignore. The distance between silence and revelation is shrinking. That is why you may have felt strange lately. Why certain memories have suddenly appeared in your mind. Why certain names have resurfaced. Why certain emotions seem to be returning without explanation. Sometimes these things happen because a connection is reawakening. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a magical way. But in a deeply human way. One person remembers. Another person senses something shifting. And eventually the truth finds its way into the open. The person connected to this message has replayed countless scenarios in their mind. They have imagined what they would say. How they would explain it. How they would begin. How they would tell you the full story. Because they know a simple "thank you" isn't enough. The impact was too large. The change was too significant. The consequences were too profound. A few words cannot fully describe what happened. How do you explain to someone that they helped save a future they couldn't even see? How do you explain that one conversation prevented years of regret? How do you explain that one act of kindness became the foundation of an entirely different life? The answer is: you don't explain it quickly. You tell the whole story. And that is exactly what they are preparing to do. There are details you never knew. Details hidden behind the scenes. Moments that happened after you walked away. Battles they fought alone. Decisions they almost made. Mistakes they nearly committed. Roads they almost traveled. And every one of those moments carries a common thread. A memory of you. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff. Not physically. Emotionally. Mentally. Spiritually. Imagine feeling as though your future is collapsing. And then one person appears. One voice. One conversation. One act of support. One reminder that life is bigger than the pain you're experiencing. That is what happened to them. And because of that, the future they almost lost became the future they now live. Can you see why this revelation matters so much? This isn't casual gratitude. This isn't polite appreciation. This is something deeper. Something life-changing. Something unforgettable. And there is another reason the truth is coming now. Because they have recently realized something important. The gift they received from you was never meant to stop with them. It was meant to continue. It was meant to spread. The hope they received was supposed to be shared. The encouragement they received was supposed to be passed on. The strength they discovered was supposed to help others. And that is exactly what happened. Without realizing it, your influence traveled farther than either of you imagined. The person you helped eventually helped someone else. That person helped another. And another. And another. Like ripples spreading across water. The effect continued. Expanding beyond what anyone could measure. Think about that for a moment. One decision. One action. One moment. Creating consequences years later. Touching lives you will probably never meet. Changing stories you will never hear. That is the hidden power of kindness. Most people underestimate it. Most people overlook it. Most people assume it disappears. But it doesn't. It travels. It grows. It multiplies. And right now, someone is beginning to understand just how far your influence reached. That realization is overwhelming them. Because they finally see the full picture. They finally understand that their survival was not just about luck. It involved people, moments, connections. And one of the most important connections was you. The truth has become impossible for them to ignore. And when people reach that point, they usually do one thing. They speak. They reach out. They tell the story. They reveal what has been hidden. That moment is approaching. Perhaps sooner than you think. But before it arrives, there is something you need to hear. Do not measure your worth by what people say about you today. Do not measure your impact by how much recognition you receive. Do not assume that silence means you made no difference. Sometimes the greatest proof of your influence exists in places you cannot see. In memories you do not know about. In stories you have never heard. In hearts you never realized you touched. And one of those stories is moving toward you now. The person connected to this message has carried this truth for far too long. They are tired of keeping it hidden. Tired of postponing the conversation. Tired of wondering whether they should tell you. A decision is forming inside them. A decision that becomes stronger every day. Because gratitude has a voice. And eventually that voice demands to be heard. Sooner or later, silence loses. Sooner or later, truth wins. Sooner or later, the story gets told. And when it does, you may finally understand why this message appeared in your life today. Not because you needed another prediction. Not because you needed another mystery. But because you needed a reminder. A reminder that your life matters. A reminder that your actions matter. A reminder that even during seasons when you felt unnoticed, your presence was changing someone else's future. The revelation is getting closer. The untold story is preparing to emerge. And the person who believes their life was saved because of you is gathering the courage to finally tell you exactly how. And when that truth is finally spoken, something unexpected will happen. The person revealing the story will not be the only one transformed. You will be transformed too. Because there are moments in life when we suddenly see ourselves through someone else's eyes. And that perspective changes everything. For years, you may have focused on what you lacked. The opportunities that slipped away. The dreams that took longer than expected. The struggles that nobody understood. The disappointments that left scars. You may have looked at your own journey and seen imperfections. But the person connected to this story sees something completely different. They see the person who arrived at exactly the right moment. They see the person who unknowingly became a source of strength. They see the person whose presence interrupted a chain of darkness. They see the person who changed an outcome. And that difference in perspective is powerful. Because while you were busy criticizing yourself, someone else was thanking God for you. While you were wondering whether you mattered, someone else was grateful you existed. While you were questioning your impact, someone else was living proof of it. That is why this revelation carries so much weight. It exposes a truth most people never realize. The value of your life cannot be measured only by what you see. Some of your greatest contributions exist beyond your awareness. Some of the most important things you have done happened without applause. Without recognition. Without headlines. Without reward. Yet they mattered more than you know. The person connected to this message has spent a long time replaying the day everything changed. They remember details you forgot. They remember words you no longer think about. They remember expressions on your face. They remember the tone of your voice. They remember the feeling they experienced after speaking with you. Because for them, it was not an ordinary day. It was the day hope returned. It was the day confusion began to clear. It was the day they stopped moving toward destruction and started moving toward a future. And ever since then, they have wanted to tell you. But life has a way of delaying important conversations. People assume there will always be more time. Tomorrow. Next week. Next year. Later. But eventually something happens. A realization arrives. A realization that says, if I don't say it now, I may never say it. That realization has recently entered their heart. The clock of hesitation is running out. The desire to express the truth is becoming stronger than the fear of expressing it. And because of that, the moment of revelation is drawing near. Yet there is something even more surprising. The story they are preparing to tell is bigger than either of you imagined. Because over the years, they began to understand something extraordinary. The event that changed their life did not only change their life. It changed the lives of people connected to them. Children. Family members. Friends. Future relationships. Future opportunities. Future blessings. Entire chapters that would never have existed otherwise. Think about the magnitude of that. One moment involving you. Creating consequences that extended through years. Perhaps even generations. That is not a small thing. That is not insignificant. That is not accidental. And when they finally explain the full picture, you may find yourself sitting in silence. Not because you have nothing to say. But because you never knew. You never knew how much was happening behind the scenes. You never knew how close they came to giving up. You never knew how deeply your words affected them. You never knew how often they thought about that moment afterward. And you certainly never knew that they carried gratitude for you all this time. But the truth has a way of finding daylight. No matter how long it remains hidden. No matter how deeply it is buried. Eventually it rises. Eventually it surfaces. Eventually it demands to be seen. The person connected to this story has reached that point. The weight of gratitude has become too heavy to carry alone. The story wants to be shared. The truth wants to be spoken. And perhaps this message is preparing you for that moment. Preparing your heart. Preparing your mind. Preparing you to understand something you have overlooked for years. You are far more influential than you realize. Not because you are perfect. Not because you always have the right answers. Not because you never make mistakes. But because human beings affect one another in profound ways. A kind word can outlive the moment it was spoken. An encouraging conversation can echo through decades. A simple act of compassion can redirect an entire future. And you have done more of that than you know. The evidence exists. It is walking around in the life of someone who never forgot what you did. Someone who remembers. Someone who appreciates. Someone who is preparing to reveal the truth. As that moment approaches, another lesson emerges. Never underestimate the power of showing up. Many people believe they need extraordinary abilities to make a difference. They believe they need wealth, influence, status, resources. But often the greatest gift you can offer another person is your presence. Listening when nobody else listens. Encouraging when nobody else encourages. Believing when nobody else believes. Caring when nobody else cares. That is what happened here. That is why the memory survived. That is why the gratitude endured. That is why the revelation is finally coming. Because genuine kindness leaves permanent marks on the human heart. Years may pass. Circumstances may change. People may drift apart. But the impact remains. The person connected to this message knows that. And now they are ready for you to know it too. When the conversation finally happens, do not be surprised if it feels emotional. Do not be surprised if memories return. Do not be surprised if details emerge that leave you speechless. Because you are about to see a chapter of your own life from a completely different perspective. A perspective that reveals hidden significance, hidden value, hidden purpose. The story you thought was ordinary was never ordinary. The moment you thought was small was never small. The action you barely remember was never forgotten. Not by the person whose life it changed. And perhaps that is the greatest revelation of all. You never needed to know your impact for it to be real. You never needed recognition for your influence to exist. You never needed applause for your kindness to matter. It mattered anyway. It mattered deeply. It mattered permanently. And now, after all this time, the truth is moving toward you. The hidden gratitude. The untold story. The long-awaited confession. The revelation that has been delayed for years. Someone is preparing to tell you how your presence altered the course of their life. Someone is preparing to explain how a moment you considered ordinary became extraordinary to them. Someone is preparing to reveal that because of you, they kept going when they were ready to stop. Because of you, they found strength when they felt weak. Because of you, they chose hope over despair. And because of that choice, everything changed. Their future changed. Their story changed. Their life changed. And now, at last, they are ready to tell you exactly how.